And what about on the
subject... And you need to tell people you're doing it too.
Yeah, and on the subject of borrowing, we've had loads of people, David Johns, Dennis Lee, David Barrett, Mark Fairley. Is there a threshold beyond which you think borrowing should not go?
Well, the test that I apply is if you have to a borrowing level that you have to justify it, but obviously you've got to make sure that it's sustainable, that you can afford it. But let me deal with this because it is quite important. We reduced the amount of debt this country had over a 10-year period, and at the same time we trebled spending on schools and hospitals, transport, and nobody at the time said you didn't need to spend money on the health service or on improving the railways or anything like that. So we did that. Now, because we now have a lower level of debt than actually most other developed countries, we are in a position where we can let borrowing take the strain. You do need to spend money to support the economy at this time, and spending includes, helping people as well as helping, things like hospitals, schools, housing and so on. You do need to do that, and indeed only governments can do that. And the lesson of the past is when governments stand back and say, no, we're not going to get involved, that's when people begin to suffer, and no one can justify that.
And so we borrow more, we cut taxes, we maintain spending. What happens if that doesn't work? What's plan B?
Well, if you look at the combination of things that we're doing, we've been talking about what governments can do in terms of helping people generally. You have to look at that alongside what the Bank of England has been able to do, and had a very big cut in interest rates. Are now at the lowest level they've been since 1954. There's a combination of both those measures will help. In addition to that, if you let's forget what we've been doing over the last few years. The fact that we've had over 10 years very strong growth, the fact that we are supporting people in the economy, despite the fact unemployment has been rising, there's still a lot of people in work. All those things will help.
Yes, I understand that, Chancellor. But what is the threshold? Is there a threshold where you say, actually, well, we can't go above that level for borrowing?
No, what we have to decide, and I'll be setting this out in the pre-budget report next week, is what levels of borrowing can I justify now to do all the things that we've been talking about, to support people, to support businesses, but I also have to take into account, as countries had agreed yesterday, that it's got to be sustainable. Sustainable means you've got to live within your means within the medium term. Now, that is just as important. And, when people...
But is there a level where you think, actually, that's worrying, that would be too much?
Well, it's a judgment that I will be making, and I'll set that out next week. But the two things are important. Yes, supporting the economy, but yes, also making sure that we live within our means. And, as people, speculate and so on over the next week or so, both those things are important, because in the long term, we have to make sure that we continue to have a strong economy, because that is the foundation of everything we want to do in terms of creating a fairer country, one with better prospects for children and people's grandchildren. It means you've got to have a strong economy, which means you do need to make sure that whatever you do is capable of lasting.
Let me put this question to you from Geraint Morgan, who says, what big-ticket projects are you going to postpone until we're seeing a better economic picture, and what belt-tightening is the government going to make if it's expecting the rest of the country to do the same?
Well, look, again, this is the stuff of the pre-budget report, but